So we're now recording. No, let's say we're recording live. We're not recording live. We're just recording. So I'm going to do my intro, Jonathan, and then we'll just dive in from there. Here we go. Get all warmed up.
Yeah, I'm all good.
You're good. Okay. Oh, throat's a bit rough. Here we go. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is a massive serial offender on this show. We have Jonathan Small from the UK. This is his fifth appearance, five appearances on the Podiatry Legends podcast. Every one of his episodes just kills it, which is why I wanted to get him back. And previously, if you've missed any of Jonathan's episodes, I'm just going to read them out. Episode number 6 was Work Smarter, Not Harder. Episode 44, Podiatry Success is a Mindset, which it is. Episode 81, Don't Live in the Land of Low Fees. That was a ripper of an episode. Got a lot of good feedback on that one. Not that I didn't get good feedback on the others. And the last one, episode 96, Fear and Comfort Zones. And we did that one as a Facebook Live video as well. So that was interesting. Today, we're going to talk about foot value. So, Jonathan, welcome once again to the podcast. You've been on here enough times, you could probably just run it yourself.
Thanks for having me back, Tyson. Yeah, I could do your intro for you now, couldn't I? I've heard it enough times.
I know. I've done the, I used to actually have it written down. I used to have the intro written down and I'd read, okay. But now, yeah, it just flows.
And of course, this is now new because this is a fully recorded one. The Facebook Live was you starting to get into video, and now we've got a full video recording one, haven't we?
Yeah, well, that's what happened. The first video I did with you on the Facebook Live one was the first time I recorded one of the podcasts. And then once that went up, and it was surprising, Deb Johnson, who is my mindset coach, we were talking about how people take information in differently. So, for example, I have a newsletter that the goal is to do it weekly, but over Christmas and all that, I might do it once a month and I sort of quiet it down a little bit. But it'll be surprising the amount of names that I see pop up on there who unsubscribed. And they're people who have been on the podcast and they are people that I know pretty well, but they've unsubscribed from the newsletter. And initially I used to go, you bastards, how dare you? And I shits and throw my hands around. But then Deb Johnson said to me, sometimes people just take information in differently. So if they mightn't like the newsletter or just they don't want to read it on a computer, but they'll see things in your Facebook feed or they'll see a video. So that's why I record the videos now and put them out there. So foot value, Jonathan, what is foot value? Tell me what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So foot value, it's been a concept in my head for a little while. And when we've gone to sort of all these Zoom recordings for keeping in touch with people, no live conferences, and knowing that we run the Work Smart Not Harder workshop, and the main thing around these workshops is trying to change people's mindset around things. When you run yours, you try and get them to think differently about things. Yeah. And I wanted to put something together that would help people think differently about foot value. Because if we as the professionals with feet can think differently about it, that can then be shared with our patients so they think differently about the value of their feet and the solutions we provide. So as a topic, it's a seminar that I've put together around foot value that can be run over Zoom to groups of people with a view to doing some mindset activities to change how they think about things. But as a whole thing for our profession, it really encapsulates this situation that we find ourselves in, that people don't value their feet and they don't value the solutions that we provide to their feet, or the podiatrists don't value the solutions that we provide for their feet. The patients often sing our praises and value it tremendously, but we don't reflect that in our level of care or fee structures or whatever.
Yeah, so, it's funny, yeah.
Yeah, so the idea of it, and I know you with Pod Legends, you're trying to get people to think differently. Well, I'm trying to get people to think differently about the foot value, because I think it's a great way to achieve success in our changing world. And it's important for ourselves, our businesses, the foot profession, and our patients and the wider public. And it's a great thing for us to really focus on, to help us understand that what we do for our patients and what they gain from us doing whatever we do, it has a terrific value to them, both in the thoughts of actually increasing their activity, their mobility, reducing their pain, but also how they fund that, how they prioritize their funding for it, which also always brings us back to the subject that I'm happy to talk about, which we've talked about before, is around fees in podiatry.
Well, what's interesting about all that, when people join the Podiatry Business Owners Club, the Facebook group that I've set up, don't get us mixed up with the Podiatry Business Owners Group. That's not the Podiatry Business Owners Club. The Podiatry Business Owners Group is an association group, and they're not as much fun as us. So, but when people join that, I ask them, what's your number one frustration? And a really common one, probably about 20% of people that join will say, I don't feel my patients value the service that I provide. And I look at that and I think, sometimes, do you value the service you provide? Because if you undercut your fees, if you do not charge enough for what you're doing, if you don't charge enough, then the patients don't see that there's value in it as well. So sometimes there's that fine line. You get what you put out.
Absolutely, yes. And it's very difficult for us to objectively look at our fees and the value we do give to the patients, and to actually realise the impact it has on their lives. And the best way to know that is to actually sit down and listen to patients, listen to their stories, particularly ones where they've suffered for a long period of time, they've had problems, they've seen other people, not had solutions, and then they come to you and you fix it for them. And you fix it very often quite easily. A classic one is somebody with a chronic ingrown toenail. They've been to their GP, they've had their antibiotics, 10 courses of antibiotics, they've had no care. I had a patient, a young lad recently, who'd had nail surgery, and they'd injected the anaesthetic through the end of the toe underneath the nail. I mean, can you imagine what that did to the poor lad? He was petrified to come and see me. I hadn't fixed the problem for him. Absolutely petrified. Yeah, took a long time to get him on board to have the surgery done correctly. Had it done, absolutely delighted with it. Yeah, and the value that brought to them, to the mother and to the son, is absolutely tremendous for having had a year of suffering. Okay, and when go on.
Oh, no, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. No, you keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt.
when we sit there setting our fees, often we'll go, are we comfortable with what we're charging for it? Yeah, but how can you define what that is value in the fee terms to a patient like that? Or a diabetic foot ulcer, one that could potentially deteriorate and lead to amputation or sepsis or whatever, and you get that healed quickly for them. The value that is for the patient is tremendous, because the cost of it all going wrong is really where they'll really suffer. And I think we just don't get the balance right in our profession, not compared to lots of other healthcare professions and compared to the wider world. And the classic one is around the value people put on their hair or their teeth or their beauty, yeah, and they quite happily spend on those things.
That is so true.
We think they won't spend it on their feet, but in reality, if you gear your business right, they will spend it on their feet.
I know, some females will, and I know this is not every female. So if you're listening to this, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about some of the others, but we'll spend $200 or $300 at a hairdresser, getting it cut, blow dried, doing whatever, bit of color put in there, highlights, foils, whatever they're doing. They'll quite easily spend $200 or $300 a couple of times a year on something that's just sitting on top of the head that really doesn't add anything to their health. Even though, like, I know when the hair's looking good, they feel better, and when you feel good about yourself, and that's all about your mindset as well. But that is spot on. People will spend money. They'll spend $100 on a tub of bloody cream for their face, and then they'll spend hundreds of dollars on the hair, and they'll spend money getting their teeth whitened, and they'll gym memberships that they don't use, and they'll go out for dinner, and they'll go and drop a couple $100 on a nice meal or a bottle of wine. But when it comes to health, people will spend money on their health if you value the service that you're actually providing. And I think if they look at where they spend money, and when they know their patients spend money, they will spend that money with you as well.
Absolutely, yes, and it's also portraying that value, and also realizing that in the wider world things operate differently. In the wider world, it isn't a flat rate fee for everything. In the wider world, you pay for the things that are required to give you the best level of care and service. So for instance, something that I introduced quite recently, in the past sort of 1 or 2 years, was a clinic registration fee. For them to actually come and be seen at our clinic, they had to register, and they'd have to pay a fee to register at the clinic, because of all the effort that goes into getting them into the clinic in the first place, of the marketing, the promotion, the advertising, whatever,
that's
and
smart.
then the registration process. Yeah. So when you take out car insurance now, they'll hit you with an admin fee for making any change to your car insurance. You don't sit there and go, I'm not paying it. Yeah, I'm not paying it. What you do is you go, okay, if that's what I've got to pay to get access to what I want, then that's what I've got to pay. And the difference is, if they can see the value in them registering at our clinic, because they know they're coming to a good clinic that they're going to get a great level of care at, and they don't kick up a fuss about the clinic registration fee.
Yeah, I've seen chiropractors. I just did a recording with a friend of mine, Dr. Jesse Green, who's a dentist, and we're talking about learning from other professions. So that episode won't come out until late February, I think. So that'll be an episode where it's a legend who's not a podiatrist.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it was Jesse that mentioned it or somebody else I was speaking to recently, but I know a chiropractor who used to have a membership fee to join their clinic. So you'd ring up and say, oh, I want to make an appointment, thanks. They go, not a problem. We just have a $50 membership fee, and what's involved in that. And you become a member of the clinic before you can make an appointment. Same thing. They get all the details. The patient then felt like they belong to a place. But with the membership fee, they gave them, there was like water bottles. There was a pack that they put together, and the value that they gave them was pretty much like $50 worth, what they were charging. But it's really to make the patient feel committed to the appointment. I'm now a member of that particular clinic. So I think it's very smart what you're doing. Different thinking. Some people, some podiatrists will hear this and go, oh, that's just bullshit.
I can't do that.
I can't do that. There's no way. I can't do that. Jonathan could do that because he lives in a little town and he can do that. But
I live in a little town with a competitor 50 yards away, with multiple competitors in all the villages around the town. Yeah. With a low population density. I can do it.
I'll tell you where you actually live, that little town that you're in.
Where I live, yes.
That little town you're in, I tell you, it's that small. That night I stayed there, I thought I was going to look out the window and I was going to see people marching down the street with pitchforks and torches to go and burn a witch. It was such a cool little place, and the monkey cider house. How cool is that?
Yeah, you love that. You can't get enough of that, can you? So this foot value thing that I've put together, and sort of trying to get the message out there about foot value, and I think the whole profession ought to embrace this, because we don't want to be seen as the lower value healthcare professional, the cheap at the end of the foot healthcare professional who's just doing a basic job to keep us on our feet. Yeah, we want to be seen as the high quality specialist in the medical field, foot professional, podiatrist who really goes to great effort to give our feet the best treatment, the best level of care, keep them in tip-top condition to keep us healthy and active. And you don't do that on cheap fees. Listen to the other podcasts if you want to hear about fees, particularly. This is about the value that our patients put on their feet and what value we put on it as well. And I think part of it comes down to, we're sat at the end of the couch and they're often looking down on us. And I don't think that does us any favors for feeling like we're worth lots, because we're being looked down on all the time. And the patients are just putting their feet inside their shoes and ignoring them. They're not really focusing on them. And we've just got to work to try and change the mindsets around those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've mentioned it a few times on podcasts, and it's in my book. It's No Secret There's Money in Podiatry, if you haven't read it. And I talk about, I tell a story of when I went with my brother and my son to Universal Studios. And I'd gone 2 years before that with my wife and my daughter. And they have a standard ticket just to get into the park. and you have to line up with everybody else. They have front of line pass, which means you pay more, but you get to go to the front of the line once for every ride and attraction. And then they have a VIP ticket. Now, I think the standard ticket's $86. Front of line pass is like 160 and VIP is 300. Now, why do they offer VIP tickets? Because there's people like me who are prepared to pay it. But I did the front of line and I did the VIP, and I tell you, the VIP service was 5 times better than the front of line. So I think people or podiatrists have got to look at how they do things now. Can you package it up? Can you have different tiered services? Can you have a basic treatment? Can you have a VIP treatment? And charge more for that service? Do you have an on-time guarantee appointment that on this particular date we'll guarantee you get in at a certain time and we'll guarantee you're out by a certain time, but you charge more for it because you've got to see less patients to provide that service. But for some patients, knowing that they can be in at 10, be out by 10:30 and be back at work, and they're in a job where they're earning $300 an hour, they don't want to be sitting in a waiting room for 15 minutes.
Absolutely, yeah. It's what's the value to the patient, isn't it? That's it at the end of the day. And we shouldn't define our fees by what we think is of value to the patient, because we think that generally as healthcare professionals, we think that the health is the most important, but actually it can be the things like you said. It can be their time, it can be the convenience, it can be the location, it can be the reputation. All of these things add to the value for your clinic and the services you provide to patients. It's and giving patients choice, as you say, is a great way to understand this. If you give them a choice, if you offer them different levels and let them decide, it's the same as the car manufacturers do, don't they? They'll take the base model of the car and they'll say, okay, that's that much. Then you can have these added extras for this much, and then you can have another level with more extras for this much, and they packaged it up like that, and then the person just chooses. They choose according to their budget, according to their wants and their needs, according to what dream they have for that car.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Why do people drive BMWs and drive Mercedes Benzes? Because they can, and they want to drive that car. They could go and buy an old Datsun 180B, and it will still get you, if it's roadworthy, from point A to point B. But some people want to do it with a bit more style and class, which is why those cars get sold. Why do people buy diamond rings? Because they can, and they want to buy them. So I think it's important to offer a better service. I think it's important to charge more so you can offer a better service. You can have a better looking clinic. You can have, better furniture. It's cleaner. It's just everything about your practice looks that little bit better as well. So your foot value, the course that you're starting, when's this actually kicking off?
Yeah, so I've tried it once and it went down really well. I've got a booking with a local branch of the College of Podiatry coming up in February, and then it's just a matter if any groups want to book me to run the course for them. Eventually, I'll get around to probably putting it out there a lot more into the world. Of course, I'm still running my clinic, so it's a matter of juggling balls, as you know, Tyson. It's there's only so many hours in the day, so many things I can do, but I'm quite happy to help people who want help. To come forward and say, yeah, we'd like to take part in that. And if there's the interest after listening to this, then I can always look at putting something on. We can always we could tie it up to Podiatry Legends if we wanted to, or through the business club or whatever, to get it out to as many people as possible. You know me, I'm quite happy to share the knowledge in order that as many people that can benefit as possible. I think this is the only way we're going to transform the profession, is by us transforming ourselves.
So eventually you want to do it as an online thing, so you can sort of touch more of the profession overseas, not just in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a message for around the world. It doesn't have to be UK at all. It's about the value of feet, and that applies to everybody around the world who's got feet or who are dealing with feet.
Okay, so you've run it once already, and you said it was very well accepted.
Yeah.
How many hours did that go for?
2 hours, 2-hour workshop.
Oh, that's next to nothing. 2 hours is easy.
Yeah, and there's fun activities in there. We're doing things over Zoom, trying to make use of the available technology to help people keep engaged because one of the problems, of course, when you're watching the screen all the time, is you can just phase out and you don't absorb all the information, do you? So we've got some activities in there to try and keep people engaged. Yeah,
It's good. It's like when we did the 12-week reboot. Remember we'd play the numbers game, and I think
oh yes,
yeah, and you get everyone doing the numbers game, and it's just that, okay, we're gonna now do something, and it's a little bit competitive. Everyone likes to see how they did compared to everybody else, but I think it's good to do some activities. But
yeah.
yeah, I think definitely, yeah, when you're ready, let's get it out to like the Podiatry Business Owners Club and mention it on Podiatry Legends, and put it together as an online event. I think that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
we could set up some sessions, no problem at all. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I think it's going to be really useful to people. It's anything that will help them get a greater understanding of their mindset towards their business and their patients.
Yeah, and that's one thing I will say about you. And anyone, if you've ever listened to the other 4 episodes that Jonathan's been on, he's now been on 5, is he is so open and willing to just share their information, share what you know and your knowledge, and you're doing it to actually help the profession. And that's why I think anytime you're running anything, people who don't put the hand up and want to jump on board, I just think they're crazy.
Thanks, Tyson. I'm your number one fan too.
But I think that's it. Like I was talking to Simon Barthold recently, and he said the same thing, like his Barthold Clinical. It's like $16 a month to be a member. And he said he's got like over 1,000 members in there now, which is great. But he said the amount of work he puts into it, just because he wants to see the practitioners improve. And we had his episode will have already come out by the time this one comes out. But we spoke a lot about conferences and things that are put on by the association. I thought, I know it's just not me, but we talked about a lot of how 80% of the conferences, most of the stuff you can't use. It's only a small percentage that you can use, but you learn a lot just by talking to other people. And Simon was saying the same thing. His goal is just to educate the profession on stuff that they can use in their clinic, which is why it's now Barthold Clinical, so that you can actually read something, apply it in your clinic, and get some results with your patients.
Well, this was the whole point for me, was trying to take some of the stuff from Work Smarter Not Harder. Bearing in mind it's a 1-day course for level 1, 2-day course for the second level, but it's very much in a group, in a room, in a situation, and trying to make that so it can be carried over into this COVID world where we're all online, trying to be educated. And the thought of trying to do it all in one day, somebody doing it all in one day, seemed to be, I think, a bit too much for them to really take on board all the messages. So getting it down into something different but complementary to Work Smarter Not Harder makes sense. Hence foot value. But it isn't just the course. It's actually, I think it's a great label for us all to think about when we're setting our fees, when we're looking at our business structure, is what value can we give to our patients? What foot value can we give to our patients?
Yeah, I was going through some old paperwork over the weekend, flicking through some stuff, and I found an old fee schedule from 1996 that the association used to put out, and it was their recommended fee schedule. And this is what they used to send everybody, and nearly everybody stuck to the same fees across the board. And that was before the government brought in that you couldn't do price fixing.
Yeah, monopolist commissions and stuff like that. Yeah.
So all of a sudden the association had to stop that. But what's funny, it's that 1996 fee schedule that when I graduated in 88, we used to get an updated fee schedule from the association every year telling us these were the recommended fees. And I would say 99% of podiatrists followed that fee schedule. Since then, I can't remember what year they stopped doing it. But most people still based themselves on whatever the last fee schedule was, and they only ever incremented it from that fee schedule that was set years ago. And the fees back then, it wasn't a lot that we were charging for different services. And I think over the last 2 decades or whatever, everyone's still, I think their fees now are based on something that we were told was a recommended fee 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And we haven't realized, well, hang on, there was Richard Chasen that was on the podcast, and he said there's only a couple of professions that are allowed to actually inject the human body: your doctors, dentists, and podiatrists. He said, so he said, you really got to value what it is that you do. We are, there's so much more to podiatry than what people think, and we should be charging accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. My big thing is we need to move the discussion of fees for podiatry from the tens of pounds in British pounds, to the hundreds of pounds. Now, because of the exchange rate with the US dollar, with Australian dollars, you're already, from what I've heard from your colleagues in the various group, is you're already touching into the hundreds of dollars bracket anyhow. But in Britain, it's talked about in tens of pounds. You can't get things done in Britain for your health in tens of pounds, not decent things at high quality. It's hundreds of pounds discussion these days. In private hospitals, it's thousands of pounds discussions.
I'm going to do a quick conversion rate at the moment, just knowing that I know some podiatrists. Just say, for example, if a podiatrist for an initial biomechanical exam, which is the exam in the biomechanical aspect of it, say for example it was 145 Australian dollars, and the exchange rate is about 0.55. Yep, did it the wrong way. Let's do that again, Tyson. So an equivalent would be about £80 UK for that initial consultation. Now, I don't know what the average fee is in the UK if somebody's coming in with a biomechanical problem. Is it usually more? Or
yeah, I would say that's probably around right, to be honest, for biomechanical. Obviously, there's a big spectrum of fees. But the point for me is that you go and see a private consultant for that problem, and you'll be looking at 150, 200 pounds before you start. Not 80 pounds before you start. And it's as if you're saying that the consultant's got more knowledge in that particular area. And I don't believe that they have necessarily, particularly for a musculoskeletal biomechanical issue, for instance, or a verruca or an ingrown toenail. They may not have much more knowledge or skill set to deal with the problem, or as many tools in the toolbox to deal with the problem as your podiatry clinic might have. So why are the fees set at such a low level comparatively?
Yeah, I remember going back a few years when at once they'd say our fee for a particular service was $125. And I know the next closest competitor was $75. And I remember a patient ringing up once saying, oh, how much is it for the consultation? We said, oh, it's going to be $125. And they went, oh, the guy down the road's only charging $75. I went, oh. I said, well, if they're charging $75 and we're charging $125, I assume we're doing something completely different. And they went, you have to be, yeah. So they booked in. And I think it's the same thing. If, and this is going to sound, no, I won't say it because somebody will complain if I mention something there. I was going to say, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say, if I offend anyone, bug ears. Say, for example, there were two hookers. Could be male or female. So I'm not going to discriminate. Could be a male prostitute, could be a female prostitute. One is worth $100 and one is worth $6,000. I assume the $6,000 one is going to be better quality. I don't know. Haven't done that. But I was sorry.
I'm cracking up here, Tyson, because I'm like, I've got you going through your wallet going, I've got $6,000 in
here. I
know.
No, how I came up with that is I was with my wife. We were in Melbourne and we were in this and we went down for the Telstra Awards and put in a really nice place. And there was a magazine on the table and I opened it up and I showed my wife this picture. And it was an escort agency and it was $6,000 a night. And I said to my wife, what do you get for $6,000 that you couldn't get for $100? And she went, a hell of a lot more, obviously. And now I know that's a very crude example. If I've offended anybody, take a lie down.
Writing complaint to
send it to complaintsdepartment@tysonfranklin.com and I'll respond. But I think any service that you're going to get a massage and talk about massage straight after talking about hookers. That was wrong. A legitimate massage. And there's one that's $45 and another one that's $85. Now, sometimes you go, oh, I'm just going to go get the $45 massage. But usually the $85 massage is going to be better. Not always, but usually it will be. And I think that it's perceived value. When people see a slightly higher fee, they perceive they're going to be getting more. And usually they do get more than
that's it. the perceived value by the patient, but there's also the perceived value by us as the practitioner, and what we feel we have to give in order to justify that charge and show that value. Yes,
Yeah.
you're not going to do a quick and simple job on somebody who's paying you twice as much as your competitor for what looks like the same work. You're going to go above and beyond to show that you're the place for them to come to, in whatever way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I was reading an article recently, and it said it was talking about fees. It wasn't podiatry; it was just talking about fees for a particular service. And they said if you go too low, the perception is you are crap. So you might be thinking, oh, I want to be the cheapest podiatrist so that I get more patients. But in fact, you'll just get crappy patients. The quality patients will see that price and go, you mustn't be any good if you're only charging that. So sometimes I think people shoot themselves in the foot. I hate the pun, but they shoot themselves in the foot by being too cheap for particular services. They need to increase the if you want to get more respect from your patients, you need to be charging what you're worth.
And on that, if we want to get more respect for the profession, we need to be charging what we're worth. Yeah. It's the same. It's the if we've got people who are giving away podiatry skills for a low price, then the public will never appreciate the value of good podiatry. And the thing for the patients is they do value comfort in their feet, whether that's just them feeling a bit better on the day, or resolution of pain, resolution of risk for themselves, keeping them active so they can go and enjoy their sports, their hobbies, playing with their grandchildren. All of these have tremendous value to patients, so they can wear their nice shoes when they go out. It's not just about the time you spend with them. That's not what they're paying for. They're paying for everything, all the benefits of coming to see you.
Yeah, well, if I had an area that was sore, for example, and it was stopping me from going to Muay Thai, or stopping me from going for a run or going for a walk, and it was really debilitating, and somebody said, give me $1,000 and I'll guarantee that I can fix that problem, I'll give them $1,000 and get rid of it, especially if it's affecting my lifestyle. Now, I'm not saying we can't always give a guarantee that what we're going to do is going to fix the problem, but people are prepared to pay to get problems fixed. And majority of times we do fix problems. Everyone knows that. We can't guarantee 100%, if we do this and in 2 weeks you're going to be completely fine. But we know for a fact that majority of the patients we treat, the end result is 100% success after a given period of time. We just know that. If you're not getting that sort of result, then you need to change probably a few other things.
It brings me to a poll that I ran, and I did talk about it at the Foot and Ankle Show Digital in October, and I ran it in the UK Plantar Fasciitis Forum, Patient Forum, and I asked them the question: is if you could see a person who could guarantee or give you 80% chance of success at resolving your problem, how much would you pay to get your problem resolved? Okay. I also asked in the UK Podiatry Forum, how much would you charge patients to resolve their plantar fascia problem as a package? Yeah. And I also asked, what level of success would you tend to get in resolving plantar fascia? So I picked 80% because that's what I believe was a good percentage reflective of the success levels you might have with the plantar fascia problem. And actually, that was the level that the majority chose, was around the 80% point. But it was really interesting because the total package that the podiatrists would charge was approximately half the amount that the patients were willing to pay. And even some of them were willing to pay up to 4 times as much as the podiatrists are charging. This is what I mean about us not appreciating foot value. The patients appreciate the value of their feet. They're willing to pay twice as much as the podiatrist would charge to fix it. Yeah. So if they're willing to pay twice as much, why not charge twice as much and spend the rest on advertising to promote, to get your patients in so they can get the help that they need from you, so you can show that you're the go-to place for them, or spend the money on getting even more tools in your toolkit to move from 80% to 100% success. All sorts of options that are going to be beneficial to the patients.
Yeah, and I think that's an area that some podiatrists may miss. And we're not saying that if anyone's listened this far, I think they're on our side anyway. But it's all about, it's not just charging more money because you can, so that you've got all this money piling out of your wallet and your bank account's got all these extra zeros behind it. That's not what we're talking about. I think you've got to be offering a professional service. You've got to keep your CPD up to date. There's so many aspects of your business. When you charge accordingly and you make more money, you can attend to more events. You can do more online training. I've had people who have said, oh, I can't do the 12-week podiatry business reboot. I can't afford it. And I'm going, if you can't afford it, you can't afford not to do it. Or I'm going to wait till next year. I go, well, that's going to cost you an extra 100 grand or so down the track. So it's, you make more money so that you can give your patients more. And like you said, you can invest in more equipment. So therefore you can help the community more. You can bring in equipment into your area that may not even exist. So when we installed the milling machine to make our own orthotics, at the time it was, by the time we set it all up, it cost us about $80,000 to set it up. Now, I didn't borrow the money to do it. I paid cash for that. The reason I had the cash is because we never charged over the top. We charged what we felt we were worth. We were always busy. And then I took that money and I reinvested it in new equipment. And then that equipment saved me $100,000 a year in lab fees. And then I took that money and reinvested it in shockwave machines. Shockwave went really well. So we bought a second one and that went even better. Then we bought a laser, and these things we just kept reinvesting back into our business, and it was helping the community, helping the patients.
Absolutely. I mean, the number of tools in my toolkit in my clinic now is phenomenal, like your clinic was. And I was one of the first to have high intensity laser and the MLS system. I was the first one to have that in the UK because I've got the money in the business to be able to go and invest in this equipment for the benefit of patients. And the patients love it and they get a lot of relief from being able to be treated like that. And bear in mind, I mean, that's quiet, small market town in the middle of England. It's not, we're not talking about city centre facilities here. So the local community benefit by having access to these things. And of course, the other problem is that if you end up with the low fees, not appreciating foot value, is that you can often end up with rammed clinics because people go to the cheapest, and they end up being too busy, so they can't make the time to go on courses to do the CPD or invest in new equipment and bring that into the clinic. But it's not the patients who value their feet when they're doing that. Those are the ones who don't appreciate foot value. And ideally, you want to be spending the time educating the patients around the value of their feet. What can happen if things go wrong? Why is it important for us to have good quality clinics to help them? And because if they don't get the level of care that's needed, it's going to dramatically affect the quality of their life.
Yeah, and I know there may be a few podiatrists listening to this, and I think most of them have probably switched off by now anyway, about if they're going, oh, but a lot of my patients can't afford that. I can't put my fees up. I can't do this. Can't. And it reminds me, I had this couple, they were both journalists, the older couple used to come in, and they used to complain about my fees every time they came in. Just every time, always complain. You should be making your fees cheaper. I said, yeah, but if I made my fees cheaper, I'd get more people like you in. and they knew that I was sort of said it tongue in cheek, that we were joking. I said, but then if I did that, I'd have more people like you coming in telling me I should be cheaper again. I said, and it'd just be spiraling downwards. And what annoyed me about this couple, and I was seeing them for years, and they were a really nice couple, husband and wife. They were both journalists, both employed their whole career, no children. And they pissed their money against the wall for 45 years while they worked. They traveled, they telling me about their holidays and drinking Dom Perignon on some yacht and someplace. They pissed their money against the wall their whole life, and then they got to retirement, and now all of a sudden they want me to give them a discount, so it makes their life easier. I'm thinking, hang on, if I give you a discount, give everybody else a discount, I'm going to end up in the same position where you are. And you know what? I'm not pissing my money against the wall. I'm actually reinvesting it back in the business. When I retire, I want to have a life. I want to have a lifestyle.
Yeah. But it's not just for your retirement. It's also for sustaining your business. Your business, if it doesn't have good cash flow, is vulnerable. Therefore, you're not going to be able to help your patients if your business goes under. And that's been demonstrated so clearly with COVID at the moment, and the change in the way you have to deliver healthcare. And it's made a lot of businesses vulnerable. And if you get your cash flow right, then you stay in business better and longer. But then, as you say, it then protects you in retirement, so you can then have the funds available to invest in your own healthcare. But it is so often the case, isn't it, that people don't think at that long term ahead about their future, and they will squander their money. They won't think what they need to put aside for their future, and we end up with the situation that they then put it onto other people to say, okay, now you need to give me discount. But one of the classics is that I see or reflect upon is that patients, when they go and have a good meal, a high quality meal, and as a family, and maybe they'll spend £200-300, they'll happily drop a £20 tip for the good service, just like that. Yeah. A podiatrist tries to put up their fee by a couple of quid, and they kick up a big fuss about it. And that's the thing. We need to be producing the nice meal experience. It's about not just about the treatment you give; it's about the whole patient experience. So they actually think, wow, that's really worth it. I'm going to drop them that tip, or I'm not going to kick them fuss when they put their fees up.
Yeah,
and if they need to put their fees up, they're doing it for a reason, because they want to achieve something for me, for their business, and to make sure that they're okay for their own security.
Yeah, it's true what you said though about it's also making your business sustainable, because I know during COVID, I've seen podiatry practices lose so many staff, podiatrists and receptionists and other support staff, because the business is pretty much being run month by month. And all of a sudden they were closed for, say, a couple of weeks, or something happened and there was a bit of a downturn. And all of a sudden their whole body language is changing into panic mode. And therefore their staff that are working with them are going, am I still going to have a job? And then they start looking elsewhere. And as soon as one person jumps, the next person jumps, because they think they must know something I don't know. They don't realize when you're charging the right fees, you've got good cash flow coming in. It's not just your livelihood that you're looking after. It's also the people who work with you. It's their livelihood. They need to know that you have a really secure business, that if there is a downturn, you've got money in the bank. That you should have I always say you should have enough money in a bank account for your business to survive at least 3 to 6 months with no income. That is just sitting there. You can maintain if for some reason your building burnt down, you've got enough money there that you can look after your team while you get everything up and running again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And many don't.
It is that it's a short-sighted approach, isn't it? It just doesn't work. It's not the healthy approach, and that's the same short-sightedness we have towards our businesses. We ought to be looking longer term, how we sustain it in the long term, and same with our feet. Looking after our feet should be for the long, or patients looking after their feet should be for the long term. Our feet are there to last a lifetime. Yeah. Therefore, don't think in the short term about, okay, I've got a painful problem. I'm going to spend a minimum amount on it, and it'll partly get better, but never really get fixed, and I'll have to put up with it for the rest of the life. Yeah, that's not really thinking long term, because potentially that then deteriorates and causes them a problem, as opposed to actually seeing somebody who can fix it properly, and they can keep their mobility and their activity levels up. And these are the discussions we need to be having with our patients to educate them about the value of their feet and the value of the business that we provide to service their feet.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's right to what the title of this episode is: foot value. Educating the patients on how valuable the feet are, and educating the podiatrists at the same time how valuable they are at providing that service. And
that's right.
The two will meet in the middle. So, Jonathan, before we wrap up, do you have a final point that you would like to share with our listening audience today?
Yeah, step away from you being the only opinion on what the value of feet are and the value of the services you provide for those feet.
Well, that was bloody good. I like that. Step away from just being the only person who has an opinion. So, okay, so who else should you ask other than you and I?
So for me, it would be your A patients, your awesome patients. I think they're a great place to start with, yeah, because they're the ones who love you, sing your praises. You know all this at Tyson's in your book. We advocate exactly the same. Just listening to your awesome patients about what they say is the value is probably a really good place. What's not good is to listen to the cost conscious and the dire patients, the C's and the D's, yeah, who are going to not reflect that value to you. not tell you how much worth it is to them. They're going to be thinking, actually, I'm short term, I can just cope with a little bit of pain relief, and I don't have to worry about my feet. I'm not going to pay out for decent orthotics or decent footwear. I'm not going to follow your advice about filing and creaming or whatever it is. Yeah, and they're not your A patients, are they? Yeah. So find your A patients, market to them, as we say, but actually discuss with them, talk to them about it. And I have these discussions with my A patients. I've filled my clinic full of A patients over the years, and the discussions I have has really educated me as to what that value they put on their feet.
Yeah, there was a guy, Paddy Lund, who was a dentist, and I talk about this in an upcoming episode with Dr. Jesse Green. But when he had a bit of a mental break, he had a mental breakdown. When he came back to dentistry, he just said, "I'm not going to do it the way they've always done it." So he took on the philosophy of a prestige jewelry shop. The only way you could get in, the door has to be unlocked for you to let you in, and they lock it again. You can't just walk in. Went through his patient list, A, B, C, D, got rid of his D's, got rid of his C's just straight away, just said, "Sorry, not seeing you anymore." Went to all his B's. He said, "This is what you need to be an A, because I'm now only seeing A patients." Any B that didn't want to change, got rid of them. Only saw A patients, worked half the amount of time, and ended up making twice the amount of money, and everybody was happy.
Yeah.
So there's a message in there. So Jonathan, I want to thank you for once again coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast for the 5th time.
Thank you for having me, Tyson, yet again. I love it.
I'm sure you will be back. And so thank you very much. And I'll see you on the over at the Podiatry Business Owners Club and in the Podiatry Business Spartans group. You are a Spartan.
Yeah, excellent place to be, guys. Tyson puts out so much great stuff, so much stuff to help you with your businesses. So definitely engage with him.
And your Spartan shirt will turn up soon. It's in the post. I have sent it.
Yeah, we know how long it takes to get to the UK.
I know. That's why I put something in the group the other day, because everybody else has started to turn up. And I think what they said, yeah, and hopefully everyone in the UK will get there soon too. And then brackets put in 2021. So, Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening, everyone.